Hey everyone, welcome back to the Privacy Guy. Today's live stream is just going to be me discussing how I got into privacy, kind of why I think it's important, and just sharing a little bit about how I got into privacy and kind of what's nudged me to start this YouTube channel. So basically, I got into privacy probably 4 years ago. And that was because I was working in a job where I was doing marketing for some privacy-based products. So that was a fun experience for me. But I guess, yeah, even before then, I took a course in college on privacy in the digital age and how the internet and mobile devices have kind of disrupted the laws that surround privacy. So that course was super valuable for giving me some context, at least, for kind of how the government and other agencies treat privacy as kind of a right, as a human right, and if it's recognized by the government. So that course got me interested in privacy. And then, as I said, that role doing marketing for some privacy-based products really kind of piqued my interest. And I really went kind of as deep as possible to get some knowledge of privacy and what the industry looks like, who the leading products were, say like in the private search space. So, diving into DuckDuckGo and Start Page and seeing what type of content they're creating, what sort of information their users care about. And then, I took that information and used it to market the product I was working on. So that, required me doing a ton of blogging and creating social media content, creating infographics about this privacy-based product. And then, yeah, ultimately created this YouTube channel as kind of part of that effort. I think the idea here was just to kind of, for like an SEO benefit, just creating a YouTube channel dedicated to privacy, and then creating some videos with some content around that privacy product I was doing marketing for. And then I kind of forgot about this channel and, just looked towards other outlets for reaching people who are interested in privacy. I focused a lot on blogging. So I did a ton of blogging about privacy, about encryption, about different privacy laws. One of the big issues when I was first getting started was the California Consumer Privacy Act. So I did a lot of research on that act and kind of privacy laws in general, and getting a better understanding of how the government goes about recognizing people's right to privacy, or how they've gone about circumventing these laws and kind of invading people's privacy. So obviously wrote a lot of blogs about that. So I had to do a lot of research. That was a lot of fun. And then, yeah, kind of at some point, I'd say maybe a couple years after I made my first video on here, I checked back into the YouTube channel and I saw that one of my videos had gotten like 20,000 views or something. I think it was a video about DuckDuckGo. And I had just kind of not even checked my analytics or anything. And then I just saw that one video was crushing it. I was getting a ton of views. And so I decided that this outlet was working better than some of the blogs I was doing, or, posting on Facebook or wherever about privacy. I was able to reach more people on the YouTube channel and kind of spread the information about why privacy was important, why encryption in products should be prioritized, honestly. I know at the time, Australia was considering like requiring back doors so that the government would have access to people's information with the tools they used. And I was obviously opposed to that. I think kind of the privacy world in general was pretty passionate about the Australian law requiring people to add those backdoors. I think they were pretty widely agreeing that was not in the best interest of internet users and people on the internet. So I, wrote some blogs about that. That was great. And then, yeah, just kind of started creating more content outside of the private search space. So if I started making videos about DuckDuckGo, I added in some more videos about how to protect your privacy on, say, social media apps like Facebook, or what the privacy practices were on apps like Snapchat or Instagram or TikTok. And I just found that as I kind of dug into how privacy applies to other products and other industries, there was a lot to learn. So I just kept an eye out for privacy stories when they'd come up on, say, like Hacker News, or checking Twitter just to see kind of what the big stories were in privacy at the time, and then making some videos about them. And that's kind of turned out to really work for me. I think I've generated a good community, and really enjoy um, making videos now. I know my videos are pretty bare bones. I'm not doing a ton of editing, but I think the information in them can be really valuable for people who might be interested in privacy, or maybe concerned about certain privacy violations that might be taking place, um, but don't necessarily know how to find that information. So I'm hoping that I can reach those people on YouTube, and maybe with some other content I'm creating. But yeah, I think privacy is really important. And one of the things that I've continuously run into is that the people who are most interested in privacy are like software engineers, or are super like deep in the privacy world. And while I think that's great, it's not necessarily the best for communicating clearly with people who are interested in privacy, who might not have any technical knowledge whatsoever. So maybe they read an article online that, the NSA had partnered with Google and Amazon and Facebook and all these big companies to collect information, but they didn't really understand what that meant. So my goal with this channel is to kind of digest that information, and then relay it on to people who are interested in privacy, but just might be a little confused about the more technical content that gets created, the more advanced level privacy stuff. I don't think that applies to everyone. So my goal is to share privacy information that applies to the average Joe, the average internet user, the average computer user, some guy who, um, might work as an accountant, but is just more interested in protecting his information. So he's not like a politician. I don't need to share information about how the president needs to prevent foreign governments from hacking into his cell phone. That's like super advanced stuff. And normal people like you and me just don't need to have that level of technical knowledge of how to um, protect our information. I see I got a message here. Your point reminds me of men who are into being well dressed. They all seem to work in the clothes industry. Fair enough. I'm not sure if I understand what you mean by that by that comment. Um, but yeah, thanks for leaving some feedback, I guess. Um, and so yeah, like I've kind of started reaching out to companies that have privacy products. I've actually spoken with people from like StartPage, or people from NordVPN, which are two pretty well-known, pretty established companies in the privacy industry. Um, I'm looking to partner with them to help spread their message. I'm not marketing their products per se, but I think if I'm able to connect with my audience and share some information about privacy tools and kind of the direction that privacy's headed, and trends in just tech and society at large about data protection and cybersecurity. And then another thing that I haven't really talked about a lot, but I think is important, is the idea that privacy is important if you're trying to protect yourself from identity theft. And identity theft is kind of one of those things that people don't think about very often, but it does happen. And I'm not advocating that you switch to products like LifeLock or whatever those late night TV ads advertise. But I think just having some common sense, or at least some basic knowledge to arm yourself if you're going online and sharing information, just giving people some idea of what they need to avoid and what is actually safe, and kind of where the threats are online. I think there's a lot of kind of fear porn when it comes to privacy, that if you don't use this product, you're going to get hacked and all your information is going to become public. And, that certainly is a possibility, but I really don't foresee, some 55-year-old lady hearing that message and then going, all right, well, I'm going to switch to a Linux computer because Windows is bad, or I'm going to stop using my Wi-Fi connection because it's not secure enough, or I need to start using a VPN all the time. That's just not accessible or really applicable to most people. And my goal is to give people basic information that they can arm themselves with, so that when they're using the internet, and they might come across a sketchy website or get a phishing email, that they go, oh, I've heard about this before. I know that this is probably not authentic, probably not real, probably not safe. So I'm going to avoid this. And yeah, I think privacy is cool. I think a lot of the companies out there, especially DuckDuckGo, has really changed kind of the conversation around what a privacy tool can be. I think prior to something like DuckDuckGo, which has recently become pretty mainstream, or at least kind of well known, privacy tools were kind of tech heavy and required some like coding knowledge, or just kind of more advanced technical knowledge to install the tools or to actually use them. But I really think something like DuckDuckGo can make a difference because it's so easy to use. And it includes a lot of great features. Sometimes I think the conversation around privacy tools is like, hey man, you should use this privacy-friendly email service, or you should use this privacy-friendly search engine. And people are kind of turned off of that because they think like, oh, well, I'm going to have to give up all this convenience. So if your search engine has terrible results, but it's private, you're probably not going to use it over something like Google, or, if you're using iMessage on your phone, you're probably not going to download Signal just because somebody said it's better from a privacy standpoint, if it requires you to download an extra app and can like move all of your friends over to this separate app. So that's kind of just something I like to think about when making my videos, is like, how can I give people information about privacy on the internet without overwhelming them with like the fear side of things, and then also not going too heavy on the tech side. So I don't expect people to get a new computer because the one they have is not privacy friendly. And I don't expect people to use a like totally open source VPN that they create themselves, just because like somebody says, if you don't use a VPN, that's bad. And then I guess the last point I want to touch on is just kind of the toxic nature around privacy. I know that word toxic is kind of like gross, but I think when it comes to privacy, there's kind of this temptation for people on the privacy side. So people who are advocating for privacy are often saying, don't use this private alternative because it's worse than the most private thing. So, say I'm using a VPN while I'm on a private Wi-Fi or a public Wi-Fi network, and it's, based in the US or something. Its servers are based in the US. Well, privacy people often have this thing where they want to go, no, don't use that VPN. That VPN's terrible. It is based in the US, the NSA could be spying on you or whatever. use this VPN instead. And then they're like, don't ever use that. But when you think about it, if the alternative is not using a VPN, and then a person decides to use a VPN that they have access to, using that VPN is going to be better than not using a VPN at all. So yeah, it's good for people to know that the products they're using are reliable and safe. Um, but when it comes to privacy, you're never going to be 100% safe or 100% private. And my goal is to tell people why it's okay to use a product that's not 100% safe. Like, I'm not advocating for people to just share all their information openly online, or to just completely ignore the um, privacy protection or the laws that protect privacy in wherever they live. But taking some step to protect your privacy is going to be far more important than using the most private software alternative. So that's another thing that comes up a lot in these privacy discussions, and I just want to clear that up. That okay, yeah, I might be saying it's okay to use Start Page, even though it's owned by, say, the like digital advertising company. Like, Start Page is going to be better than Google because you're not contributing to that huge centralized power that has so much information about billions of people. It's just it's okay to not use the most private thing out there. So I just want to provide that information to people and let them know, like, you don't have to give up all of the convenience of using technology just because you're concerned about privacy. I see in the comments, yeah, in my opinion, there needs to be a book or show that informs the public why privacy needs to be a legal right. I totally agree, 100%. I think that's one of the big issues with privacy, is that there's not enough information out there. And as I said earlier in this video, um, people just don't have that information. And if they do, it's not really digestible. It's not a person digesting that information and then relaying it. It's like coming from software engineers saying, hey, we use AES 256 encryption or whatever, and people don't know what that means, and they don't know if it's better than nothing or if it's better than what they are using. They just don't have the knowledge to decipher that information. So I do agree that a book or a show, or honestly this YouTube channel, I think could be a great way to inform the public of the importance of privacy and why it's not okay to just say, like, screw it, I don't need privacy rights. I don't have anything to hide. I think that's another thing that most privacy companies struggle with when it comes to kind of convincing people to use their products, is people just don't care. Yeah, so I see a comment. What do you think of Winscribe VPN? I don't have a personal opinion on Winscribe. I really haven't used it, but I can't remember. I think it's called VPN Mentor or whatever that one privacy site changed its name to. That was a really good resource for, all right, so it's called Safety Detectives. Yeah, that's a good resource to kind of check out VPNs you're using, to see if they have the highest level encryption, see where their servers are based, and just kind of get a better understanding of what each tool does, and if it has the features that you're looking for, and if you're able to actually protect yourself with that VPN. And then one thing I will add is I think that when it comes to VPNs, it's important to consider what information you're protecting. So if you're doing illegal stuff, obviously you need to have a higher level of protection if you're trying to avoid detection, than something that might not be totally encrypted or might not actually hide your IP address. You just need to think about that. So that kind of ties into threat modeling. I've talked about threat modeling before. Basically, what that is just looking at the threats that you need to address, looking at the threats that affect you and impact you, and then what level of security you actually want. So if you're a public official, if you're a politician, obviously the stakes are a lot higher than if you're just a normal, normal average Joe person. Um, you are you're not going to have to take as many steps to protect your privacy just because nobody's really trying to collect that information. Obviously, companies like Google and Facebook might be, but the odds of some foreign government trying to collect your information versus the president, that's going to be quite different. So, um, yeah, I think that's kind of all I have today. If you guys have any more questions, you can drop them in the comments and I'll try to answer those. But yeah, I'm probably going to continue to do these live streams. I find it's kind of an easier way to discuss certain topics that come up um, on a regular basis as opposed to creating an actual like video. Um, so yeah, if you have any suggestions on topics that I cover, any specific questions, let me know and I'll be more than happy to share. Um, I think, yeah, the only other thing is I've kind of made a lot of shorts recently, and I just appreciate it if you guys go watch those videos. I know some people find shorts on YouTube super annoying, but I think they're a good way to spread privacy information in a way that's super accessible, digestible, and super easy for people to understand if maybe they don't have exposure to privacy or kind of the information to protect themselves on the internet. Yeah, and I guess finally, I made a video yesterday about privacy trends for 2022, and I think there's probably more about or like more topics that I could discuss just to arm people with the most information that I can about these topics. The things I talked about were important, but I just kind of want to add to it. So I think kind of the top 5, or at least the 5 that I prioritized, were private search engines, private browsers, instant messaging, private email, and password managers. So obviously, private search. I've made a ton of videos about private search engines. I'm super into DuckDuckGo. I think, as I said earlier in this video, DuckDuckGo has made a privacy-friendly product that people can understand because search is pretty simple. People understand how that works. You type in your search term, and you get search results. But DuckDuckGo has done it in a way where they can provide you with valuable search results and can do it in a way that's like friendly and actually accessible to basic internet users. Dang, Trump 2024 Mark Dices is going off in the comments. Really appreciate that, dude. Yeah, and then just some other options for private search are Quant Searx, Searx. It's an open source search engine, so that's important if you're really focused on using open source products. And then finally, Startpage. Startpage is basically old Google. I don't know if any of you remember that, but Google used to have like very few ads, and Startpage has a pretty similar look and feel. It also uses Google's search results, so that does a lot to improve the quality of its results over something like even Yahoo and Bing can't really compete with Startpage's results because it uses Google's results. And then next up, private browsers. I think the best way to explain this is that people use browsers as their like window to the internet. So all of your internet behavior, or most of it at least, will flow through your browser. So your browser is important to keeping you protected. So using something that blocks trackers automatically, using something that doesn't collect more information about you, like Google Chrome does, and then using something that takes additional measures like a VPN built into your browser, or Tor browser is a good example of one that has additional protections and encrypts your behavior. Firefox is also a great browser. I'm a big fan of Firefox. It obviously has a lot of like brand recognition, so that helps to make it more accessible to people. And then Firefox also has a bunch of cool new privacy features, so it's a good choice. And then Brave is also privacy focused, but a lot of people aren't really fans of it because it kind of just takes the ads that you would see on other websites or on other browsers and like injects its own ads into the browser. So that's kind of one of the downfalls of Brave. But I think overall, if you're using Google Chrome, Brave is probably going to be better or more private. And then next up is instant messaging, or kind of phone calls or video chat. It's just Signal. Signal's great. It's open source. It's encrypted. Looking forward to kind of trying Signal out and for more applications. So taking video calls with Signal. But yeah, it's available. It makes, or you can use it for text messaging. You can use it for video chat, and you can make phone calls on Signal. So definitely something to try out if you haven't used it before. It's really easy to use, and it has a pretty nice interface. Next up is private email services. These are good, but I wouldn't say they're the most accessible, just because, or I guess, yeah, they are accessible, but the problem with private email services is that they can't protect the contents of your email once you've sent them to someone. So if I have a Proton Mail account and I send an email to someone with a Gmail account, well, the contents of that email could potentially be hacked or leaked or whatever. So that's one thing to think about when it comes to private email. But anything you can do to move away from Gmail and feeding into the data beast that Google has become, I think is a good thing for privacy and for protecting your communications. Obviously, if you are a journalist or a high-ranking public official, you're probably going to want to protect the contents of your email or not use email at all. So yeah, Proton Mail, Tutanota, and MailFence, those are the three I recommend, but I know there's other private email services out there, and those are probably good as well. And then the last one is password managers. I think password managers are super valuable, and not because I think it's hard to store your passwords, but I think if you're going to be using complex, long passwords that are hard to guess, you're going to need a password manager to store those for you. And you're not going to be able to remember passwords for all the services you use online. So if you're wanting to protect yourself, your password is kind of the first line of defense against someone getting into your accounts or hacking into your bank account, any of that stuff. So using strong passwords is super important. If you don't know how to use a password manager, they're really easy to use. If you have an Apple device, you probably have Keychain already on there. I know there are probably some downfalls to using Keychain. And I know there's probably some issues with using some cloud-based password managers, because these tools have to store your passwords online somewhere. Typically, they use encryption to keep your passwords private, but obviously anything that's online has the potential to be hacked, even if it's encrypted or in some super secure server somewhere. There always is a possibility of it being hacked. So using a password manager like Bitwarden or KeePass can help you actually use really secure passwords. They can generate passwords for you, so you don't have to worry about coming up with a long, complex password and then adding it to your password manager. You can just click a button and it'll generate a long password with other characters, with capital letters, with numbers, whatever the requirements are. These tools can create those passwords for you. Yeah, and then those are kind of all the privacy issues that I'm going to discuss today. Obviously, check back in for some more privacy messages. I'm always putting those out there. And then one thing, if you want this video in a more complex or less complex version, I'm going to drop this link in the chat here so you can watch this video just to get some more information. Let's see. You can check that out. And then, yeah, I guess I can answer some of these questions. So if you're asking about the next big foe as far as privacy goes, yeah, I'm definitely concerned about the metaverse. I know that companies like Facebook are really investing heavily in the metaverse. And why I think that's an issue is because these companies already have tons of user data and know what people are interested in and what type of content people are most likely to react with or interact with. And as their product becomes more and more like overarching, as it becomes more invasive, like more interactive and like sticky, people use it and don't get off for hours at a time. That just gives those companies more and more power and more outlets to collect people's information. So that's why I think the metaverse is an issue from a privacy standpoint. I think there are potentially some great things that we can do with the metaverse. But overall, I think as companies like Facebook and Google get involved, you're just kind of throwing more data into their ecosystems, and that's not my goal, at least. And then next up, should password managers getting hacked be a concern? I think definitely. If you're using a shitty password manager that doesn't have encryption, like, you're putting yourself at risk, because if you're using a cloud-based password manager, your passwords are going to be stored online somewhere. And so I think this is why it's important to have information about privacy tools, to understand which ones are the best, which ones are reputable, and then which ones are or should be avoided. So there have been password managers in the past that have had issues with hacks or with security vulnerabilities. And definitely, I try to stay on top of that. So if I find out that a tool I'm using has been hacked or had certain information leaked, I'll avoid that tool. And then hopefully I'll make a video and pass on that information to people on this channel. And yeah, I understand. Let's see, you don't trust password managers. Yeah, I agree. I think it can feel kind of sketchy to put your passwords into a piece of software that you don't know anything about. So as I said, you'll want to choose a reputable password manager. Something like KeePass is interesting, or KeePass X. I'm not sure which one it is, but there is an open source version. And that's good because you can verify that your passwords aren't being logged anywhere, or you can kind of see what type of encryption it uses to keep your passwords safe. But yeah, if you're skeptical of using a password manager, you can always just use a piece of paper or a notebook and put it in your desk, or put it in a safe if you have a safe. I know high-tech options are probably more convenient and are probably interesting to people, but at the end of the day, if you're just trying to protect your information, take it offline, take it off of your computer and put it in a physical place that you can actually protect. That's going to do you a lot better than putting it in something that you can't trust and that has security issues. So yeah, I guess you take whatever approach you want to using a password manager, But as I said, I think the most important thing when it comes to password managers is that they make it convenient to use strong passwords. If you don't have a password manager, you're probably going to be less likely to use long, complex, hard to guess passwords. Let's see. 1-800-OFFLINE says, what kind of phone do you have? I have an iPhone. I know a lot of people in the privacy industry have issues with Apple and with iOS devices, but I just find that iPhones are the most accessible. They are, widely used. So if I need accessories, if I need certain apps, I have that available to me. I know that, de-Googled phones that don't have Google like automatically installed on them are super valuable to a lot of people who are really concerned about privacy. But with my job and with other things, iPhone is just the most convenient for me to have. And yeah, so I choose to have an iPhone. I am happy with the encryption of iMessages. I'm happy with the, new changes in iOS 14 that allow me to ask things not to track me. I know that those requests aren't always honored by the apps and services that you interact with, but I think Apple's heading in the right direction with privacy because they make privacy accessible. And that's something that I'm trying to do on this channel, is just making privacy information digestible and making it accessible to as many people as possible. I definitely will endorse tools that, might have some privacy issues. But if I think that they're going to be better than using Google, or better than using Google Chrome, or better than using Gmail, I'm going to endorse them. I think if you can make yourself 50% safer, if you can protect 50% of your information, you're doing a lot better than sharing 100% of your information with Google. And yeah, that's kind of all I had for today. If anybody has any questions, feel free to leave a comment. Do I have crypto? Beverly Brown asked, do I have crypto? Yeah, I do. I had more in the past, but I just kind of lost interest in holding a bunch. I think cryptocurrency is an important technology for the future. I think that it can be a good hedge to holding something like the US dollar that could come under attack from, a foreign war or something. And then I think kind of the decentralized aspect of crypto are super important. But then I also think that there are issues that arrive with or that come with using crypto that should be avoided. So if Facebook launches the metaverse and then requires you to use its Libra currency or Libra coin or whatever it's called, if Facebook requires you to use their currency, I think that's a problem. So not all crypto is good, not all crypto is bad, but the less centralization we can have when it comes to money, I think that's a good thing overall. Yeah, so I think if there's no more questions, I'm going to wrap this up, and really appreciate you guys all tuning in today. If you haven't subscribed, I'd really appreciate you subscribing, or at least checking out some of my other videos as I try to make privacy information more accessible online and spreading my message to more people. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys all soon.